What's up, Gridlock? Today I'm going to show you how to navigate the Destiny board. The Destiny board in Albion is functionally your stats page in terms of your levels that you would see in any other game. So to get there, you'll either press B on your keyboard and it will pop up this Destiny board, or you can press these four dots in the top right. In terms of navigating this, there are functionally four directions. If we start going upwards, that's going to be your adventurer path. So your adventurer path determines the mounts that you can ride, the bags or capes, and demolition hammers that you can wield. In this game, there are tiers 1 through 8. Functionally, all that matters is going to be tiers 2 through 8. So tier 2 is going to have kind of a grayish brown background. Tier 3 will be green. Tier 4 will be blue. If we're looking on the left, all of these have a blue background. Tier 5 is going to be red. Tier 6 will be orange. Tier 7 is going to be yellow for all of these. And then Tier 8 will be white. So white all the way over here. In terms of navigating the Destiny board, there are, of course, different directions that we can go. On the left is going to be your combat tree. On the bottom, you're going to have your hunting, your farming, and your gathering tree, all kind of combined together at the bottom. And on the right, it is going to be your crafting tree. So we'll start by going left, looking at the combat tree. Everyone starts with functionally tier 1 and tier 2 unlocked. But within this fighting tree, there are different nodes. So within these nodes, once again, you have to unlock everything separately. Each node is technically its own piece of armor or weapon that you have to unlock equipment with. So within your combat tree, there is a mage setting. Mage will be your mage weapons and your mage armor. There will be your hunter tree, which is going to be your hunter weapons and your hunter armor. So leather armor for hunter, cloth armor for mage, and then at the bottom, it's going to be your fighter tree in the combat tree. So this is going to be your warrior weapons and your plate armor. So kind of navigating this, as I said, all of these you have to unlock separately. So going straight to the mage tree, you have to unlock tier 3 here, and then from here you have various different weapons within that tree that you also have to unlock different to all of the other nodes. So for example, in this mage tree, there are different weapons you can wield. This is going to be your fire staves, your holy staves, your arcane staves, your frost staves, your curse staves, and an offhand. Every tree will have an offhand, and they all require levels within them. So something to note within leveling is levels relate to the tier that you're able to wear, as well as special abilities that are unlocked within that tree themselves. So for example, if we look at tomes, because tomes won't have any special abilities, all of them functionally have passive energy regen and cast times. We'll use this to kind of show the leveling path that unlocks different tiers. This level path is going to be the same regardless of which node that you're in. So for example, level 1 is going to unlock tier 4 at any single node. The difference is you have to unlock that level at each node. So for example, if we're looking at my Destiny board, I have level 100 out of 100 unlocked for my Tome Fighter, but if we go to my Warlock or my Curse Staves, I'm only 79 out of 100. So if we're going down this, I do not have tier 8 or this spell unlocked because I have not gotten level 100 as a Curse Staff Fighter. So going back to the levels, at level 1 you will unlock tier 4, at level 10 you will unlock tier 5, at level 30 you will unlock tier 6, at level 60 you will unlock tier 7, and at level 100 you will unlock tier 8. Once again, that's going to be for every single node. So if I get to level 100 in Frost Staves, if I want to then switch into Curse Staves, I will have to level Curse Staves all the way up to level 100 to wield a tier 8 weapon. That's going to be the same for all of these nodes. So once again, there are various nodes. There's your mage weapons, cloth armor, which is your mage armor, your hunter lodge, which are your hunter weapons, and your leather armor related to hunters, and your fighting weapons and plate armor. All of these are going to once again be the same, whether it is armor, whether it is weapons, whether it is plate, leather, or cloth. All of them are going to work the same. Tier 1, Tier 10, Tier 30, Tier 60, and and level 100 for Tier 8. All of these you're going to unlock at the same rate, but it's based off of that specific node. As we go further down that tree, this is what is called specialization. So specialization, or spec, is functionally what tells the game how efficient you are in that specific piece of armor. So for example, if we look at this higher node for plate helms, I can wear tier 8 plate helms because that is 100 out of 100. But as we go right down that path, we can tell that my soldier armor is 79 out of 100 specialization. My Judicator helmet is 101 specialization. And if we look at Royal helmet, it's 0 out of 100 for that specialization. All of these specializations functionally go to 120, but there's a cap at 100. So once you reach level 100, everything after that, you have to use what's called fame credits, which you get from leveling up equipment when you're already level 100. We can talk about that in game, but nothing to go over specifically in this tutorial. The purpose of specialization, or spec in specific items, is that it gives a additional equipment or additional IP to the specific equipment. So if we look at my Judicator helmet, which I am 101 specialization or spec in, I get 202 specialization bonus to item power or IP for Judicator helmets. So in terms of wearing equipment, I'll get a base 200 IP boost just from wearing a Judicator helmet. On top of that, there's passive bonuses of a 0.1 bonus over here for all plate helmets. So if we go over to Graveguard armor, obviously I'm only 33 out of 100, so in terms of passive bonuses, I get 66 specialization bonus for wearing Graveguard armor, but technically from Judicator helmet, I'll also get 10 points from there, 6.3 from Demon armor, 1.3 from Guardian helm, 8.7 from Knight helm, etc. Because those are also plate helms within the same tree that I have specialization in. Probably more advanced things to go into that we can answer questions on in game, but functionally that is how the combat tree works for leveling. As we get down to the bottom part of the Destiny board, there are 3 different sections. So tracking is a new skill in which you kind of track monsters, or you can track other beings, and they functionally have, once again, specializations in there for the type of monsters that you track. For that, you can ask questions in game. We won't really go into detail over that. Also in the bottom, you have your farming tree. So in farming tree, there's technically 2 different areas. One is going to be your cropper or harvester. So for this is where you will plant either seeds or animals. So functionally, once again, tiers 1 through 8, they're going to unlock at the same levels. But of course, you have to do it within these own specializations. So there's herbalist, which are going to be things that typically you use for potions. And then there's going to be crops, which are going to be used for food. Once again, different nodes, all technically under the farming tree. To the left of that is technically the equivalent of refining for your farming. So to the left of it, that's where you're going to be creating either potions or creating food. All of those are going to be using the byproduct from either your herbalist or your cropping for plants. Just to the right of all of that, you have what's called animal breeder. So this is going to be the other part of farming in which you're able to farm or create mounts. So for these, usually you'll use these foals, these kids, or calves, and functionally you're going to raise them on your farm, and you'll functionally create usable mounts. That's it. We won't go into too much detail in terms of the bottom section. Next, you have your gathering. So for gathering, once again, pretty similar. Start at tier 2. All of this goes down. You have tier 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Goes all the way down, just like all the other trees. And similar, you have your specialization, which is an increase to item power, which doesn't really mean too much. But what's really important is you get bonus to gathering yield when gathering that specific resource. So for example, if we go to my harvesting for expert, which is tier 5, we can tell that I get a 25% bonus to your gathering yield and 25% bonus to your gathering speed. And that is all because I have 50 out of 100 specialization. For this, you can go ahead and read all the text, but rewards per level, you get a 0.5% bonus to your gathering yield when gathering heavy hide, tier 5, and plus 0.5 bonus yield to your gathering speed when gathering heavy hide. That's it in terms of the gathering node. If you have questions, once again, we can answer that in game. In terms of the last side for Destiny board, that's going to be your crafting tree. So similar to your combat tree, you have to unlock every specific node within here. Your nodes are going to be the exact same, so functionally it's going to mirror what's on the combat tree, just kind of upside down. So instead of it being mage on the top, it's fighter on the top, and in the middle it's still hunter lodge, and on the bottom it's going to be your mage. On the left side, it's technically flipped. You have your fighter or your plate armors on the bottom, you have your hunter lodge or your leather in the middle, and you have your cloth up at the top. But it functionally works the same thing. You have levels, and those levels are still going to be the same: 1, 10, 30, 60, and 100. Based off of your level, you're going to be able to craft the different tiers of material. Also along that, you have what's called specialization for crafting, and for this increases your either focus usage or the quality that you could spit out when you produce materials. So if you're producing, let's go ahead and look at these guardian armors for me. So if I'm producing these guardian armors, I get a 2,370 bonus to focus efficiency, meaning it costs less focus for me to craft plate armors of any kind. But on top of that, for guardian armor specifically, I get a 19,750 specialization bonus to focus cost efficiency for specifically guardian armors. If I were to go to soldier armor, that obviously goes down significantly more. It goes down to 150 passive for all plate armors, and only 1,250 for crafting soldier armors, because I'm only 5 out of 100 for soldier armors. The other piece for this is what's called an increase in quality while crafting all plate armors. Quality is functionally a part of equipment IP, and I believe the difference is 20 per, but that can increase or decrease the value of the materials that you either buy or sell. The last piece of this Destiny board that we'll go over is refinement. So within here, the only difference between the combat tree and the crafting tree is this very bottom section down here. And the two sections in here is tool making, which is going to be crafting bags, capes, and the tools that you use for gathering, and refinement. So refinement is when you take a resource and you build it into the next tier. So usually to create a tier 4 cloth, you're going to need 2 of the raw materials and 1 of the refined material at a lower tier. As we go down the tree to tier 5, so tier 5 cloth, that's going to require 3 materials of the tier 5 raw material and 1 of the refined lower tier material of cloth. We go down to 6, That's going to be 4 and 1, so 4 unrefined, 1 refined of the tier below. Tier 7, that's going to be 5 and 1. And tier 8, that's going to be 5 and 1 as well. So typically it goes up one of the raw resource, except for when you get to tier 8. Tier 8 and tier 7 are both quantity of 5 of the raw and 1 of the refined. The last important thing in terms of Albion Destiny board tiers is going to be what's known as enchantments. So at the very end, if someone says, hey, we're going out in tier 6 or tier 7 armor, technically that means tier 7 equivalent. So what that means is you can either go straight to, let's go to plate armor. If someone says, hey, come out in tier 8 or tier 7 equiv, you can either get a flat 7, which is going to be this yellow background, or you can do what is known as enchantments. So if we go all the way back over to refinement, in here, and this is going to work the same functionally for every tier, but there is 0 enchantment, tier 1 enchantment, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. Tier 1 enchantment is going to have a single green dot at the bottom and a green border around it. Tier 2 enchantment is going to be light blue with a light border around it. Tier 3 is going to be 3 purple dots at the bottom and a purple border all the way around it. And tier 4 enchantment is going to be 4 yellow dots at the bottom and a yellow border around it. All of these, in terms of equivalent, is going to take the base tier level, which is going to be this Roman numeral at the top, plus the enchantment. So this right here is a tier 5 equivalent. This one here is a 5.1, meaning it is a tier 6 equivalent. This is a 5.2, meaning tier 7 equivalent. This is 5.3, meaning tier 8 equivalent. And this is 5.4, meaning tier 9 equivalent. So if you're ever told, hey, we're going out in tier 7, you can either come out in a 6.1 equivalent gear, you can come out in 5.2 equivalent gear, you can come out in 4.3 equivalent gear, or you can also come out in flat 7 equivalent gear. For some of these, you do need to have at least a tier 6 baseline weapon, so tier 6.1, and the only reason for that is because sometimes it'll have a special skill that only tier 6 unlocks. So if you looked at a tier 4, let's look at tier 4 for broadsword. As you can tell in the W ability slot, there are only 3 abilities. But if you were to go to tier 6, you unlock 3 additional abilities. So the only caveat to that is going to be if you're doing some weapons in terms of roams or whatever content you're doing, you just want to make sure you have the appropriate skills when someone says tier 7 equiv, that you have the skills required for the weapons. Certain things that are artifacts, this tier 6 Galantine pair, yes, these all have the abilities because it's tier 6, but if you go to tier 4, they're also going to have the abilities because it's what's known as an artifact weapon. Artifact weapons require these specific materials to build, but a lot of times you can get away with 4.3 for your weapons if they're artifact based. That way you don't miss out on any abilities. If you guys have any questions about the Destiny board or about enchantments, feel free to reach out to myself or any of the officers in game. That's all.